was for the FDEs to act as product discovery. So they would go to the site, they would take the product as it was, and they would fill the gap between what the product did and what the users needed. So, the FDE goes and builds like a gravel road to where the product needs to go. And then the role of my team, of the product and engineering team, was to look at that and basically figure out how that should generalize to the next 5 customers or the next 10 customers, and then turn that, gravel road into like a paved superhighway. Difference between sales-led product discovery and FDE-led product discovery is that sales-led product discovery, you're talking to people from the outside. And again, this is important very early on, but it's not as effective as the FDE-led product discovery, where you're solving these problems from the inside. Yeah. So, the scope of a traditional implementation might be, you start with something that's pretty close to what the product does, but you want to be solving one of the key problems that leadership has identified. If you're not solving one of the top 5 priorities for the CEO, it's probably not going to work. They probably won't have the energy to persist through the much more challenging route of getting effectively a new piece of the product built in a way that worked for them. Then once you've solved that first problem, then the FDEs can, identify other key problems in the enterprise, sometimes much more valuable problems than the ones that you were first targeting, that maybe it's not obvious that Palantir could have solved those problems or that your company could solve those problems. But once you're there, you can see through product insight that you can actually do this. And then you go and solve those problems. And so it switches from, how do I sell the same thing to each customer, to how do I land and expand?
Bob, can you lay out sort of exactly how the FDE model works at Palantir? Like if you were giving people almost like an instruction manual, like here's how we did it.
Yeah. So I think a starting point is to think about how the team was structured. And of course, there's many different iterations, but I think this is the key thing that remains constant, is that the 2 key roles are those of what we call the Echo team and the Delta team. The Echo team were embedded analysts. So they would go to the customer site, they would speak to the users, they would try to figure out what demo or what use case really made sense for the users at this site. What was the key problem that could be solved? And they would also be the account managers. So they would also be the people managing the relationships at the customer site. And the Delta team, the deployed engineers, were effectively software engineers, typically very good at writing code extremely quickly, eating a lot of pain, as we put it. And they would be the ones who sort of took those ideas and brought them into the real world and built a solution, a prototype, but something that could actually work, and then deploy that for the customer. And all of this would come in a very short period of time. So, you go in with an idea for what you're going to work on, you set up, a few months in that you're going to, have a presentation with leadership to show them your progress. And then if that presentation goes well, then you're going to actually deploy and go, organization wide. And then for your deltas, you want someone who's really good at prototyping. So the wrong profile for a delta would be someone who's a craftsman, who really loves, making sure the abstractions are exactly right, that, they're building software that's going to be maintainable for, a dozen years, right? Because that's not the role. That's not the job. And what you want is someone who can go in, figure out, write some rough and ready code. Sometimes that code is beautiful if you get the right person, right? But usually not. That, again, that's not the key portion of the job. But someone who can go actually deliver that outcome in the form of software on a timeline. And then it may be the case that the first version they write has to be thrown away. And maybe they write a complete second version. Maybe someone else writes a second version, depending on that person. But those are the key sets of skills.
It does sound a lot like a founding team.
Yes.
It sounds a lot like a founder.